Hope you're all sustained and refreshed. Okay, you're welcome. We just move on to the Uplands Group amendment, please, and I can this be called on Stuart Rice to.
Thank you, Chair. I'm presenting this amendment because I felt, and the group felt, that we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, and we're in the eye of the storm of that at the moment. So anything the council can do to help people and to save them from more pain and pressure, the better. So we've put a couple of clear amendments forward, which you hopefully have been able to read, or you may have seen tabled. The first amendment, and this follows on from some of the technical advice that the 151 officer, Ben Smith, gave us earlier. The reduction in the energy inflation provision for next year from 15 million to 12.658 million. Now, the Section 151 officer said that we could actually go down to 12 million. So actually, we've got a little bit of play there of 658,000. And the next thing then is to not increase the council tax as amended by the Cabinet in the Cabinet meeting to 5.95, but to remain to original proposal of 4.95%. That will obviously cost money, and it costs 1.342 million. And I believe that should come out of the money which is being saved, the 2.342 million from the energy inflation provision. The final, and I think almost most important thing that we're recommending is not to increase the adult services client contribution by up to 10%. Now, why? People always say, oh, it's a few pence here, it's a few pence there. No, not everybody pays for it. I'll give you a simple fact. Now, back last month, BBC ran an article on exactly this issue. And I'll give you some figures that might surprise you. In the last financial year, not this one just been, but the one before, there were 330 people across the whole of England who were pursued for non-payment of care fees in the ones that we're describing here. 330. Okay, that's not very many. How many do you think was it last year in the middle of the cost of living crisis? 60,000 people were being pursued because they couldn't afford their care prices. We're now proposing to put them up by 10%. We've got money. We can afford to not put this up. And I think it's really important and almost an obligation on the council to think we're in the eye of a storm. Help people while they're there in that eye of the storm. And the same goes for council tax. We know that it's reasonable to put it up by 5% according to the 151 officer's advice. Why are we putting up by 6%? There's money in the bank. And I mean, I would have said these things anyway today, but then when the leader got up and made a series of announcements, which went into the millions of pounds, it shows that he and the Cabinet are aware there's also money available to spend. And I just think it's about priorities. And I think some of the most vulnerable people in society deserve our support. And, you know, you just need to look at what's online from groups and organisations and campaigns like Disabled People Against Cuts, and just listen to what people have got to say and look at the figures. One year, there were 330 people taken to court because they were behind with costs. The following financial year, there were 60,000. That shows you what the increase of costs can do to people.
Is there a seconder for the amendment, please? Councillor Joy? Thank you. Leader, do you want to respond?
Yes, thank you, Lady Member, and thanks to Councillor Rice for bringing the amendment. It's not an amendment, though, that can be supported, largely because it's inconsistent with the advice given by Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith has been explicitly clear about his red lines on base, and these amendments are base changes. So I'll deal with the council tax first of all. The council tax reduction by 1%, which Councillor Rice says will cost 1.342 million. It will cost 1.342 million this year, but it will actually cost 5.368 million between now and the election, because as Mr. Smith said, and as I said to Mr. Thraves, it misunderstands how base works. It misunderstands how council tax works, in that if you cut that this year, you automatically lose it for next year and the years subsequent to that. In addition, there is also the same effect with adult services. We know that social services are under huge pressure. We would like to see the UK government change the funding arrangements, as they promised many times, around social care, meaning that money will flow into the social care system. But for the same purpose here, the fees, as Councillor Rice indicated, are going up by 6%, but inflation's gone up by 10%, and that has meant that the fees that are paid are already 10% lower than they were a year ago in terms of its buying power. And again, that £1 million cost is not a one-off £1 million. It's a £4 million cost between now and the next election. And in terms of Councillor Rice's suggestion that it's about priorities, I've been very careful in everything that I've moved on behalf of the Labour group, in that they are one-off amounts. They are the total impact on the budget taken from a single reserve. I have not gone near base, because that would be breaching the advice given to me by Mr. Smith, which I'm sure he has given to the Uplands group, or at least finance officers will have given to the Uplands group in creation of the motion. Finally, in terms of the reduction in the energy inflation, yes, absolutely right, that there potentially will be around a £3 million surplus left. But as I alluded to earlier, since we met as a cabinet, we've still not got clarity on teachers' pay or on the pay of our workforce. If the workforce continue to reject the pay offers, then there's only one way that's really going to go, and that's going to be renegotiating upwards. So that pressure will continue to build. In addition to that, energy prices, whilst they have fallen, and Councillor Rice is right on that, we cannot give any confidence that they will remain low. The situation in Ukraine is still very, very difficult. We've got China proposing potentially to arm Russia, and that could lead to a further escalation in the conflict, which will indeed drive up energy prices once again. So the reason that I and the Labour group didn't go to that fund to remove the 3 million so we could move amendments is because we believe we may well need it. And again, we think that education, social care, leisure centres and others may need help going into next year. So that is why I would reject the amendment. I don't believe it can be supported, and I would welcome Mr. Smith's views on the base elements that I've covered in my response.
Mr. Smith, would you like to come in, please?
Thank you, presiding member. And yes, I confine myself only to technical matters because I have to be neutral on this. The amendment is lawful. That's why I allowed it to be tabled. But as has been discussed and debated, I give utterly consistent advice, either directly or through proxies, where I'm trying to maintain appropriate Chinese walls. The advice I gave to Cabinet was, if you take something out of the base, you've got to replace it, and do not do base, do one off. The remove 10% on social care is removed. That's base, clearly. The council tax effect is effectively base. I do accept a decision could be taken in future years to then add it all straight back onto council tax. It is lawful for a year, but it does destabilise the MTFP longer term, and it would, in my view, just ultimately result in needing to play catch up the following year anyway. If the energy underspend, and I do believe at the moment, at this snapshot in time, it is up to 3 million, so the numbers are correct, they're absolutely right. If that had been crucially built into the base budget, then that would have been in play for the amendment, because it would have been swapping base for base. But I have given consistent advice to Cabinet and again today in Council that the procedural device I used was to pay for it one-off temporarily from its self reserves, to avoid Cabinet having to recommend to Council 12 to 15 million pounds worth of further cuts. So because of the way I've structured it, it is not base, and therefore at the moment, as the leader has indicated, I form that view as well, that it's mixing base with one-offs. It's lawful. Council could decide to do it if it chose to do it, but viewed through the lens as your Section 151 officer, it is clearly not as prudent as I would like it to be, but it is a matter for debate in the chamber. But those are my views, and I am absolutely consistent in my advice. I need base for base. I will allow one-offs, but I will struggle to recommend it being safe, and certainly not as safe as the original proposal, if the amendment were to pass. But I take no sides either way because I have to be neutral on it. It is a lawfully constructed amendment. It is fair that it is debated. You've heard the views of the proposer and you've heard the leader's response. So it will be over to council to decide how it wishes to choose to proceed. Thank you.
I'll now open it up for debate. So I got Councillor Gibbard. The leaders first. Sorry, Louise, I need to call on the leaders first. Sorry. Councillor Holly.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I think it's a very laudable debate amendment, and I think under the circumstances, if it had been a one-off, it could have been supported, because without the support of the finance officer, it makes it very difficult for anybody to agree. I understand where Councillor Rice is coming from, and I think a lot of us, I think most people in the chamber, even in the Labour group, would accept that this is what they would want to be. But we're not in that position, and as much as I would like to support it, I don't think I can support it because the finance officer is not recommending it.
Councillor Holly. Councillor Lyndon Jones.
Remember, yeah, I'm obviously listening to the Section 151 officer's advice here, which obviously is crucial.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Joy. Do you have any comment? No? Okay.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Yeah, I just wanted to speak against the part of the amendment that's talking about the increase of the cost of fees in particular. Clearly, we haven't brought this proposal forward with great glee and enthusiasm. It's unfortunately, as everyone, we are very aware of the increasing cost of living crisis, and unfortunately, along with that, the cost of delivering care has increased, and we've got very limited options in front of us in order to protect these very vital services for the people of Swansea. Hopefully, the Uplands Party members have taken the time to read the Cabinet papers on this, which outline the extensive background work officers have done, the full impact assessment and the consultation which has taken place. Officers endeavoured to contact everybody that pays for care service to make them aware of this proposal, to give them the opportunity to take part in the consultation, to ask any questions. And you will see from the papers that the results of the consultation does show the majority of people in Swansea do recognise that they are willing to pay a little bit more rather than reduce or lose a service, which I think is really important. It's hard to say exactly how many people are going to be affected by this change because people's circumstances change, and obviously people are taking up care or not receiving care on a daily basis. But the sort of snapshot study that was done showed that only about 25% of people who pay for care currently will be affected by this. And in any case, no one is going to be required to pay more than the cap that has been set by Welsh Government. And, for some people, this is going to be as little as an extra 60p, or clearly every penny counts, and I'm not trying to belittle that in any way, but it's not going to be a huge amount of money for a lot of people. Everyone, of course, is given a very fair financial assessment based to judge on their ability to pay, and anyone can request an updated financial assessment if their situations change. And of course, it's really important we will monitor this and monitor people's ability to pay and continue to work with clients and support them to maximise their benefits, as we know benefits are hugely underclaimed in a number of areas. So we will not take that sort of draconian approach that Councillor Rice is talking about that's happened in English authorities. Our options are always to help and to work with, and there's a lot of support available to people through the cost of living crisis.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbard. Anybody else got any? Anybody else? No? Yeah. Okay, I'll call back on Councillor Rice then, please, to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. Just to remind people, really, this is a peculiar year. We are in the middle of the cost of living crisis, and I would say that there are particular pressures in this year which people are dealing with. So council still has options to be able to do other things in the future. So I think you've got to see it in that aspect, that you're making a decision that has an immediate impact this year. You can make other decisions in the future. So the advice from the Section 151 officer is that it's lawful. Yes, it would be a difficulty if you built this into the base forever, but you may well make choices of difference in years ahead. And I know that's the case from having been cabinet member before. And I would suggest that this year is particular, look at the circumstances, look at the pressures that people are on in this year, and you can make that decision.
Okay, we're going to move to the vote then, please. Anybody for support of the amendment? Any? The amendment falls. Sorry, the majority are against. Okay, so we move to the second.
On a point of order, Chair, are the people online being counted in these votes at all?
Yeah, who has got them in
Okay.
front of me? Thank you. Okay, we move to the second amendment, and that's from the Conservative group. Willis leading it. Councillor Thomas, thank you.
Thanks, presiding member. This is quite a simple proposal. As far as I'm aware, CDC chairs.
Sorry, Chair, just to interrupt, just to make sure, are the chairs, CDC chairs, did you say personal and prejudicial on this item or just personal? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, as I'm under the impression that CDC chairs it's not common to for the council to fund those in other authorities across Wales. It's certainly not commonplace. So this would make a saving of roughly 60,000 per annum. We propose these funds would be diverted to secure the current vacancy in scrutiny, and any remainder of that go into audit. It's very important. I think everyone will agree the scrutiny of the council and audit and fraud departments also. Thank you.
Can I have a seconder, please, for the motion?
Yes, presiding member. Yeah, we believe that I think this role should not receive an additional salary over that of the basic councillor allowance, and that is from a group who fully support the CDCs, as you all know, and engage with them. And we should also like to think that Swansea would like to take a lead in reducing the number of senior salaries paid to councillors, and here's our chance. As Will said, £60,000 additional money could be used to keep open the current vacancy and fill it in scrutiny, and any surplus going to audit. So I'd like to support this motion.
Okay, thank you. Can I open it up or respond from the leader first? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On this item, again, I think it's probably been overtaken by events, which may have passed Conservative group by in terms of decisions made at Cabinet and also statements made elsewhere. So, firstly, following discussion with members of the opposition and representations made by members of the opposition, Cabinet did agree to roll back on a number of items, including the review of the support for scrutiny, and that we have agreed to defer that item on the basis that we will work with all parties to review the support arrangements, not just for CDCs, but for scrutiny, for governance and audit, for Cabinet and CMT, and for the Civic Lord Mayor's Office. I think it's important that if we do a review, we don't just pick one part of the council to do it. We look at the support that's needed for all of the functions of the council, and that is why we chose to roll back. So that money, if you like, has already been rolled back and deferred, subject to the review. In addition to that, again, it's out of sync in terms of our process, because the decision on SRAs is made by this council at AGM. So it is at AGM where you would move whether or not you wish to agree the SRAs for the coming year. You did so, and you did support that, I believe, in June of this year, or end of May, June of this year, last year, sorry. And therefore, the motion is once out of time, and two, it is being made at the wrong time. So for that purpose, it is not supported.
Thank you, President Member. Can I say that the notice of motion, the amendment as actually written is incorrect. There's no vacancy in scrutiny as such other than the political research officer, which we agreed to get rid of anyway. The vacancy, what's happened in scrutiny is that the cabinet have rolled it back and it's for 1 year only. It's subject to review. And I think to that extent, we will abstain in this amendment.
Councillor Joy? No. Going to open it up for debate. Anybody? No? Councillor Hardy?
Yeah, I'm just amazed and I'm embarrassed at the inept Tory group. That's all they can come up with in a budget is to on £60,000. Can they just get real? And it's like I'm just lost for words of the audacity of them to come here today.
Can I say, in the years that I've been coming to various councils, I've never heard Councillor Robert Francis Davies lost for words.
Chris, is the first time for anything.
It is recorded. Can we put it on YouTube, please?
Thank you. Okay, just a reminder, we are now
I'm
voting.
sure you would agree it is embarrassing.
We are now voting on the Conservatives amendment, which is the second amendment. So can I have a show of hands? Oh, yeah. Sorry. We, the Conservative group, are proposing to remove the remuneration for CDC chairs. This would save roughly 60k per annum. We propose that these funds be then diverted to keep the current vacancy in scrutiny open and the remainder to go into reducing the proposed cuts to the audit department. So can I have a show of hands in support of the motion, please? Okay. There's two online as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody against? Some online as well. Any abstentions? Yeah, I got some online as well. Okay, the majority against, so again, that amendment falls. Okay, so we move to the third amendment, and that's from the Lib Democratic group. And I'm not sure who's speaking. Is it you, Chris, or is it
Me?
It's Peter. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The amendment is on the screen for those who will see it, but essentially that anybody who's been in the city centre recently knows how difficult things are proving, not just for the market traders, but for all the shops in the city centre. We feel that though we're starting to recover from the COVID pandemic, there needs to be a bit more time to give them the chance to make that recovery. Now, this is for 1 year only. This is a temporary amendment to give the city centre a further year to recover. So what we're saying is that to try to keep on encouraging people to come into the city centre and use the shops there, that we should freeze the car parking charges in the city centre alone for that period for another year, and then put them up as proposed the following year. And in addition to that, we're also suggesting that we have that we use the new Swansea app, which is coming into being, to give and we very much welcome, by the way, the free bus transport on the weekends and in school holidays. But in the week, we should be using the Swansea app to give Swansea residents a discount on as a pilot scheme on certain bus routes into the city centre, because of course we also want to encourage people to use public transport to go into the city centre as well as using the car. Now we estimate that could be about £500,000. It's a one-off for this year only. It's not part of the base, and then we can revisit this in the following year, especially in terms of the bus use, to see whether that be sustainable for future years. So that's the amendment we're proposing, and we hope that it can be supported, because we do feel that the city centre needs that extra year to be able to recover from the problems which it's had through the pandemic and the situation it's in now. Thank you, Chair.
Can I have a seconder for the motion, please? Okay, thank you. And Ben, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. With this one, absolutely support the intention of this amendment, but again, it's probably a little bit timed out on the fact that I've just announced that we're going to double what you're suggesting here and put £1 million in, not 500,000, to help with bus services, free bus travel for anyone during the holidays anywhere. You'll know that the reason we chose that option is because if you go for something like a 25% reduction on tickets, it's administratively difficult to do. It's difficult, and the value doesn't reach the passenger. So that's why we've gone for the reintroduction and extension of the free travel. In addition, in terms of the residence app, again, we were very clear as part of our manifesto that we wanted to bring forward that facility so that people would get benefits when they lived in Swansea as a taxpayer in Swansea. Parking is already being introduced, as you know, from April the 1st at a reduced residence rate, which will allow residents to save money every time they park automatically. But that will be supplemented by the fact that we will continue to work with BID in the city centre to run additional promotions over and above that. Also, we have proposed to reduce the park and ride charges to just £1. That means that a car with 4 people in it is just 25 pence to come in on park and ride. So, and in addition to that, of course, we do have schemes that we operate with businesses in the city centre where their staff or the business can arrange pre-parking deals with us at a reduced cost, so staff can avail themselves of an ongoing discount. So double the money proposed already, doing more than the motion suggests, and meeting the aims that I think the motion tries to aim. So for that, all of those reasons, can't support this motion because we're already doing it and we're doing much, much more.
Okay, I'm going to call Mr. Smith in for a minute to give us some technical advice. Okay, Mr. Smith, please.
So I mean, this one is much the same as the advice I gave previously. Look, it's lawful. It clearly is one-off, which meets that test. So I have no problem with the proposed amendments. The thing that causes some potential difficulty, whilst the leader has referenced what is in his slides and what he's intending to do, the amendment here would amend the budget, whereas the leader was indicating what he would be doing as the executive in due course. So they're not quite technically the same thing. So I am satisfied the amendment stands. I have no other technical advice to give. The amendment is done on a one-for-one basis. It's again political choice debate in the chamber because the leader has indicated there are some technical difficulties and some other matters. But from a finance point of view, I am perfectly relaxed. The amendment stands as is. It's one-off. It is both lawful and it is logical from a finance point of view. But I do recognise the other comments that have been made. I have nothing further to add by way of technical advice.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'm now going to open it up for debate. So, Councillor Rice.
Yeah, I mean, I speak in support of the amendment, actually, because I think it's quite laudable. I do recognise that the Cabinet, through the leader, has already made a decision to put more money into this area. I think there is an element of this amendment which is not captured by what the leader announced earlier. And if the leader was prepared to maybe amend his plans for the £1 million or to tell us a little bit more about it, it may change my view. But the fact that we're looking to reduce the prices of certain key routes, I think is a good idea. And I definitely do share, sort of shadow the beliefs of Councillor Black in terms of that, because there wasn't anything quite in what the leader said that would say there were price reductions in certain areas. Okay, yes, he did say park and ride. Okay, yes, he did say about free travel, which I think is excellent at weekends and at in holidays. But we haven't quite addressed the fact that, if you get on a bus here, it's £4.70. If you get in a bus in London, it's £1.65. What's going on?
Thank you.
Can I answer that point as a point of clarification for Councillor Rice? I think the point being here is that free offer, the 600, I think it's £601,000 is the estimate. That means that everybody can travel at certain times for free, whichever part of the city or county they're in. In terms of the park and ride, that applies equally to everybody if they use the park and rides. And in terms of the 25% on the bus fares, yes, you could deploy that. That is true. However, we are also facing the risk, which I outlined earlier, about the bus emergency support ending as part of COVID. That will likely mean bus operators, not just here, probably, but across the UK, deciding that routes are unviable for them because there won't be the passengers on them, and there is potentially, therefore, the opportunity for the bus operators to remove that route, giving suitable statutory notice. There is no point, therefore, offering a 25% discount if the route is no longer running, and that is why we have decided as a cabinet to put support in to keep the routes operating and then to make them free at certain times, because one, it's administratively easier to do, more of the money reaches the people who need it, i.e. the passengers, and it makes sure that more of our bus network remains viable.
Councillor Lyndon-Jones, did you want to come in, please?
Presiding member, I think it's obviously a good idea, and we would support the city centre car park have with no increases to encourage people to get back into the city centre, which is really important, and obviously, so, as I say, something we would support.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Andrews-Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, presiding member. There was actually an opportunity for Councillor Black or one of his colleagues to come to question the parking charges report when it came to cabinet recently, but no one came. Our parking charges have not increased since 2014, and as the leader outlined, and actually are 22% lower than where they actually should be. We've actually kept our parking charges among the most affordable in the country, and spent over £2 million to subsidise the rates and maintain them at near record lows in council-owned car parks. We already reduced our car park charges following the pandemic, and as you heard tonight, there are still significant budgetary pressures caused by inflation, energy crisis, and insufficient funding from UK government. Funding via ERF, as you mentioned, was never a sustainable long-term solution, and this is why we're looking to increase the charges to ensure the preservation and maintenance of our car parking services in the coming years. Even with the new rates, prices will still be 7% lower, and this is why we're looking to prices still be 7% lower than where they should have been, and still remain cheaper than NCP car parks in most other major cities. We offer sustainable, as we mentioned, we offer sustainable public transport options at just £1 for a park and ride, which I believe puts us at one of the cheapest in Wales. And as the leader announced earlier, a welcome announcement, that we'll continue our bus travel promotions, which have proved hugely successful across the country. And we have committed to looking at additional proportions with partners like BID, based on what businesses say they need. What a value in our parking charges has enabled us to do is to introduce for the first time a discounted residence parking offer. There'll be a new residence rate for each car park, and that will mean that residents will automatically save money and pay less each time they park. We have, as an administration, promised people benefits for those living in Swansea, and parking charge reductions over the standard rate for residents every day of the year is a first step in that direction, delivering on a promise we made at the election. So the proposed amendment also completely overlooks the beach and foreshore car parks, and I don't think it's a reasonable ask to keep the city centre at 2014 levels or below, while everywhere else is increased. I guess that's not surprising, given it was the previous Lib Dem independent administration that introduced car parking charges in the foreshore in the first place. So for these reasons, I can't support the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Richard Lewis.
Thank you very much. I agree with Andrew that I think the prices are quite reasonable. What we're charging for people is fine, but the problem is we haven't got enough. When I first got elected here, we had 20,000 car parking spaces, which brought in every day 200,000 people. When you look at that sort of money, it was brilliant for the city centre. I ought to know, I was trading in the city centre. But then you look then You go around, you go up to Forest Farm, you go to the all Laneckley, you see the cars are piling in there and it's free. And the problem is the Labour Party have suddenly died. We only got 3,000 now, or less than 3,000 car parking spaces. Over the last, I would say 50 years, it's come down. And I just think, as far as I'm concerned, you kept squeezing them out. You kept selling this bit of land. I had a business once in Alexander Road, and around the corner, I had my good friend, Mr. Satori, and he used to do very well because there were car parks all around him. But they've all gone. They've all been built on. And I think that you need to look at how can you get extra car parking spaces within the city centre? Because the thing is this, I think you've left it too late. People are already going to all the other areas around us, from Cardiff, from Bridgend, Laneckley, even Carmarthen. And I think, you have actually ruined the city centre historically.
Councillor Andrew Lewis.
Thank you, presiding member. I had the pleasure of attending the Special Economy and Infrastructure Corporate Development Committee this afternoon. Again, I will say what I've said in previous meetings. It is such a shame that the Liberal Democrats and Independents group doesn't feel that they can participate in that committee. If they had, presiding member, they would have seen a trial of the Swansea Citizen app. And actually, I look forward to us launching that in April, and that will have the intended consequence of boosting our local economy, encouraging people back into the city centre, giving significant discounts in local businesses, and also referenced the council car parks. So I cannot support this amendment to the budget, presiding member, but if the Liberal Democrats and Independents would like a walk-in tour through the Swansea Citizens app, I suggest that they attend one of our CDCs.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillor Leslie Walton.
Thank you, presiding member. Yeah, just a little bit curious as to this idea that we should have extra car parking. Surely the idea is to try and discourage additional cars, particularly in the position we're in now with climate change. And by increasing car parking charges, isn't that going to encourage bus travel? Thank you.
Councillor RFD.
Yeah, and Councillor Richard Lewis says it was 20,000 car parks. Car parking spaces. There was never 20,000 car parking spaces, Councillor Lewis. You can remember the report coming that the amount of car parking space they had and then projected how many would need. And the projection was we would need 15,000 at that time. I was in the same meeting as you. In fact, I was supporting you on that amendment of the car parking spaces. But the trouble is I believe in an integrated transport system. I believe the bus station was put in the wrong place. You come in off a station but then we talk about, you mentioned buses. Now then, who messed the buses up? Probably you carry a photograph in your pocket of Margaret Thatcher. The deregulation of the bus services. We haven't got a transport system on trains coming in, on buses. What we got is a private service that is too expensive for the people to afford to go on. And what we need is affordable prices. We want a transport system that's not for profit, is to get people around. So if you believe in bringing people in the city, Councillor Lewis, remember he was the czar for the centre. I don't know what he did walking around the centre to be the czar. But it's utter nonsense, Richard, that we need, I think the motion was put forward by Councillor Black with a good heart. He believed and wanted to do it. Perhaps unfortunately, the leader has actually come up with a better solution in the budget, and working with BID will actually deliver far more. Working with the people, the people in the city centre that you were supposed to go around and meet and talk and on their behalf. on bid. And they will actually, they know what they're talking about. They are there day in, day out, know the trade. So I actually think that Councillor Black, with good intentions, I can't support it because I actually believe what's been put forward by the leader is very good.
Okay.
What did I think that what Councillor Black put forward is very good? You might be surprised, I think he's got a nice guy.
Councillor Alison Pugh.
Yeah, thanks, presiding member. I wanted to make a point. Sorry, with all the conversations that go on, you lose your track of where you were and what you was thinking. But I wanted to just make the point that in the financial crisis that we are all in and seeing, you know, that yes, 25%, okay, off makes a difference of a family, you know, from £4 to £3, but it can't compare to like free travel. And, you know, I'm a councillor in the furthest ward out, you know, in Swansea towards Neath Talbot, and residents in my ward, they can't come in unless they've got the free travel. You know, they haven't got that money, and people haven't got money to put petrol in. So with all the crisis and everything, you know, the more we can help people, the better the city centre will do from it, because people can come in. Thanks.
Councillor Lewis, did you want to respond? I will allow it on this one time. As long as you brief.
For the area, the AM for the area, about High Street and all the streets in the city centre. The problem was the rates, the commercial rates there was so high, they were crippling the businesses. And when she came down, in fact, to the county hall, and you were probably there. And sadly, she said they turned the request down. There were about 50 or 60 businesses there. They all wanted a serious reduction because it was crippling them, and virtually the traders that were there then have gone. And it was the council tax or the commercial rate they were paying was far too expensive. And that's what's drove out, and no help from the Welsh Assembly.
Thank you, Councillor.
It was actually the national non-domestic rate, get it right.
No more hands up. I'm going to move to the sorry. Minutes then. 2 seconds, not 2 minutes.
2 seconds, really. I was going to say, Chair, that we're the only council in Wales actually named a building after Margaret Thatcher. But I mean, I think I wanted to go to that economic CDC. I actually wanted to go on that presentation. I even had an invite sent to me. The problem was it arrived 23 minutes after the meeting had started. So by the time I logged in, the meeting was over. So it's a shame, because I would have liked to learn a bit more about it. This amendment is not in addition to what Councillor Stewart has outlined. This is, sorry, it's not instead of what Councillor Stewart has outlined. This is in addition to it. It is funded, which means the investment which is referred to will still be there. So it's not as if we're taking money out of investing in car parks, because we're proposing to put money in to do that investment. It's on top of what's being proposed, because we do think that is important that we continue to do as much as we can to attract people into the city centre. I think the other point, of course, the park and ride was referred to. There is no park and ride from the West. And I think we have to recognise that the city centre doesn't just rely on citizens of Swansea to support it. We actually have a wider catchment area, non-citizens of Swansea, who could use a park and ride from the West, but also could benefit from those car parking charges being frozen for another year, and to actually use the shops in the city centre. So what we're proposing here is a one-off. It's funded. It's in addition to, not instead of what's being proposed at the moment. And I think it's important to understand that this is there to try to help the city centre to recover that 1 year, an extra year to recover, by giving them those additional incentives for people to come in and use the shops. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Black, right. We're now going to be voting on the third amendment, and that's from the Lib Democrats. I will read it out. This budget has seen a great deal of increase in many areas of the councils, both in fees and charges. We would like to put forward that the city centre car parks have no increases in their charges to encourage the use of our city centre, which is the main plank in the council's regeneration agenda. To assist the use of the city centre and other venues, we also propose that the new Swansea app, which will give Swansea residents reduced parking charges, be used also to to give a reduction in bus fares of 25% on targeted routes to be discussed with the bus companies, and that this pilot scheme be run for a year along with the freezing of the car parking charges in the city centre. The finance for these one-off for a year to be taken from the Economic Recovery Fund reserves, which would cost 500,000. I'm now going to move to the vote, okay? Those in support of the amendment? Okay. Can you put your hands down online if you've, please? Okay, those against? Any abstentions? Fallen as well. Okay, so we now move back to substantive motive, and it's back to Councillor Stewart. Thank you.
Chair, I've got very little to add to what I've said before. I think it's a really significant budget. It is a record amount of investment into services, into education, into care. It is a record amount of investment across the board, and I commend the budget, and I hope that all members in the chamber will support it.
Councillor Holly.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Can I thank the leader for the slideshow, which was quite entertaining. But it is sad, and it is incredibly sad, that this administration has to go back 13 years. 13 years. And what's happened in that 13 years? I'll tell you what's happened in that 13 years. You've had a lot more money. And what have you done? You borrowed money and you built a lovely, shiny arena. Good for you. In those 8 short years, apart from cleaning up the decay which was left, and the biggest bit of decay, leader, was this building was left in a terrible state. We had to spend tens of millions of pounds for you having the pleasure, and all of you, to sit in here. Tens of millions of pounds, and you still got to keep it maintained and stop the water coming in. What else? Refurbish the leisure centre. I'm not going to count on with that one. New bowls hall, the new library, which you now decided isn't in the right place, although it overlooked, without doubt, the finest view in the country. Maybe the wrong side of the road. Unfortunately, that's where the beach is. Anyway, I've mentioned the Guildhall. It is very sad that, you know, I'd written quite a complimentary speech, actually, because this is a very difficult budget. But if the leader continues to go back and back and back, you know, half of you members weren't even here. I wouldn't say about being born. I think some of them were, you know. Maybe not having been 18 to be able to vote, but that's besides the point. But you've got to remember, you know, you were being told by the leader what he wants you to know, not was actually the correct things. So what can you say about this budget? It is difficult. There's no doubt.
On a point of order, Chairman.
Very, very difficult.
On a point of order, is it in order for the Leader of the Opposition to suggest that the Leader of the Council is actually misleading or lying to the Council?
Far be it from me to say anything like that. I just said, what I said is, if you'd listen, that what's in the display, you know, the way he took the mickey out of Stewart and Peter, you know, well, you know, he's done it to many other people before. It's what he wants to put over. The proofs, well, you know, that's, I'm not going to go down that road now. The problem is, as I said, it is very, I find it quite difficult to understand why you have to go back all the time and blame someone else. You have been in charge of this council for many years. You have set the profile up, you've borrowed the money, you've put up the nice new arena, you're in the process of building other buildings as well. You know, that's fair enough. And it's all done from here, the building that you left deteriorate and we put back into service. So the point is, it is a difficult budget. There's no doubt about that. We're in a very, very difficult position. The country is, let's be blunt about it, is being run by a bunch of lunatics. And we are being put in a position, pardon? Well, I don't know, but the reality of it is the people that we have running this country have an agenda which doesn't include social inclusion. It doesn't include the care of people who are vulnerable and children who are vulnerable. All they're interested in is people with a lot of money. Well, I don't know about that, but the reality is this budget would have been, if the fact that we had just accepted the fact where we are and a couple of little tweaks to that budget, it would have been accepted. But unfortunately, where we are, we just have to abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lyndon Jones.
Sorry, Chair, can I, presiding member, can I interrupt? There are obviously people making comments in the council whilst the people are speaking, and we, if we're online, have got no idea what those comments are. Could they be asked not to do that? Thank you.
I will, because even I didn't hear them, to be honest with Councillor Walton. I need to call on Mr. Ben Smith before I call on Councillor Jones, if that's okay, Linda.
Apologies, presiding member. Please call me in after all members have spoken. Mine's only a final bit of technical advice, so I will defer to all members' comments first.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Councillor Lyndon Jones then, please.
Thank you, presiding member. What I would say is that this council has benefited from a serious investment from the UK government. As we all found out during the pandemic, if it wasn't for our Prime Minister, then Chancellor, and the furlough fund, we would have seen mass unemployment in Swansea. And it's thanks to the Conservative UK government that we had all that massive investment, and they've been very generous with money to the Welsh Assembly and that, or the Senedd, and that has enabled them to give money to Swansea. You seem to forget that time and time again. So thank you to the UK government for the money that Swansea has benefited by for a long period of time. More money than was given, I'm sure, by the last Labour government.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. No? Do it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll just be brief in my summing up because I do need to answer a few of the points here. I know it does irritate Councillor Holly and the Liberal Democrat Independents, who, of course, the Independents, let's remember, the Independents were the ones just about 10 months ago telling people they were completely independent. You shouldn't be part of a party. We're never going to cooperate with anybody. You vote for me and I'll stand up for you. And lo and behold, they're in a relationship with the Lib Dems. You know, so you know it's an odd arrangement. But of course, at least they're not in power, because when they were in power, they did then do the damage. And I thought I was being really kind. I thought I was being really kind tonight, because all I did was went back to the official documents that they themselves signed off, they themselves brought before this chamber, and I just thought I'd resurface a few bits. There was nothing there that was accurate. I could have been worse. I could have, for instance, said Councillor Mary Jones and her Service at Swansea project, £80 million spent on it, jobs exported to Scotland from Swansea, our IT services privatised, job lost in Swansea at a cost to the taxpayer of £80 million. But I didn't say that. I could have said that. I could, of course, I could have mentioned children's services, which under the Liberal Democrats was in special measures. Can we stop
having cross-talk, please? We're having complaints from online because they can't hear what's going on. So one voice. Okay, thank you.
So I could have mentioned children's services, which of course was taken into special measures by the Liberal Democrats and the Independents. And of course, what did they then have to do in order to pump lots of money back into children's services to get it into a stable position and have huge amounts of additional work and effort from our staff, the dedicated staff? They had to rob that money from education. It didn't go into schools. The money that the Welsh Government were making available for education was being diverted. They also then did spend money on this building, absolutely. the building was nearly 80 years old at that point in time, and I supported the spending of £30 million on this building. But the problem was they spent the money, then stayed across the road. They didn't actually come back here to use it. It was this administration that decided to come back to this building to make it the proper home of the council again, and to make use of the money that the taxpayers had invested. So, you know, when you look at their record, and it is a pretty poor record, then you just have to accept that, you know, comparisons need to be made by what's happening now with what's happening then. I know you would all love for it to be forgotten, but it's our responsibility as administration to make sure people are reminded of what it was like when you were in power. Turning to Lyndon Jones, I'm assuming you got the same term for the Conservatives as you did for the National Conservatives, but let's remember they were your bedfellows for 5 years. You were the co-architects of austerity. It was the Liberal Democrat, only 3 was it? It felt like 5. So, I mean, you were the co-architects of austerity, and the money that was taken out of Wales, you know, hundreds of millions of pounds removed from Wales as part of the austerity budgets. And of course, for Councillor Lyndon Jones to lecture us about the wonderful work done by the Tories in London during the pandemic, well, I think we're starting to see what was actually being done by the Tories in London. Have you read the text messages? Gavin Williamson suggesting teachers were trying to get out of going to school, denigrating our teaching staff. Sorry, Chair, I'm on my feet. I'm sure the Tsar will sit down for a little while until I finished. Poor taste. Poor taste, okay. But we've then got, of course, Boris and the rest of them, of course, were partying while people were unable to see their families. And of course, while people were being forced to stay in their households, not even able to attend funerals. And of course, they were having parties. That's what was really going on. So if we want to remember the pandemic, let's remember the real pandemic and how there was one rule for the Tory government and there was another rule for the rest of us. So, Chair, I'm very pleased that we brought this budget. I know it's uncomfortable for some members across the chamber because they couldn't do what we have done. And I will put, and we will put our record as an administration in much more difficult times than they faced against what they had done. So I commend the budget, Chair.
Mr. Smith, please, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Presiding Member. My apologies for being a bit eager before the members had the full chance to do the final debate on the items.
We can't hear you, Ben, sorry.
Can you hear me now, Chair? Yep. Yeah,
Still
thank you,
can't hear you,
Presiding
Ben. Can you go out and come back in? That might help, I'm not sure. I believe you can hear online, but we can't hear in the chamber, so we're waiting for Ben to come back in. Can somebody online just ask a question or just say hello to us or something so we can hear you, please?
Hello, can I hear you,
Councillor
Presiding
Walton,
Member?
can you speak for us, please?
Can you hear me?
We can't hear anybody online.
No? Can you hear me, John?
Okay.
I suggest adjournment.
Okay. We're going to adjourn for 10 minutes then, okay, for them to sort out the glitches that's going on here, and then we'll be back in at 25 past. Okay, thank you.